So until last week, Coinbase and BNY Mellon were going to be the custodians for Morgan Stanley's Bitcoin Trust. However, we got some news that got quietly overlooked during the weekend, and it looks like Morgan Stanley wants to become a Bitcoin bank. You heard that right. This would cut Coinbase out of the middle completely, but it looks like they're working on their own interesting things in the background, because Coinbase was just approved to receive their banking trust charter by the OCC last week. Before we dive into the story and how it relates to Bitcoin, let's check out this really interesting clip.
So you guys made the news, I guess it was a couple of weeks ago, about the filing for an OCC chartered bank to custody, digital assets. Can you talk a little bit about, why you needed the bank, what that means for you?
So we are a bank already. We've been a bank since the global financial crisis. I think,
Reluctantly.
Yes. No, it's had benefits to our business, and we've spent a lot of time over what scarily is almost 2 decades being able to offer, new services to our clients on the banking side. But the OCC charter would potentially provide us a way to custody and hold cryptocurrency assets for our clients. So we've started down that journey already. I think there's really a 3-step approach there. So we're doing a referral model to start out with. We'll move to legal custody, and then in the future, potentially, really be able to build out that technical custody. I think the other thing too is longer term, there are some opportunities around the business that we may need to use that OCC charter just to, again, it's too unknown with regulation right now, how things are going to settle out and what entity we're able to do certain business off of. So look, it buys us the opportunity to just continue to build out, and we'll, as the information comes through, we'll make those decisions, when we're tasked with them.
So this is absolutely massive. Again, you have another Wall Street giant following in the footsteps of Citibank. Remember what the Citibank representative said at the Bitcoin for Corporations event. Of course, that is hosted by BTC Inc., Bitcoin Magazine, and Strategy. The Citibank representative went out there and said, hey, listen, we want to custody Bitcoin on behalf of our clients. Now, what is the significance of all this? There's a very famous clip that I keep referencing, I've been referencing for the last couple weeks or so, of Michael Saylor back in 2022. He said that 3 things needed to happen in order for Bitcoin to hit $5 million per coin. Thing number 1 was the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETF. That happened in January of 2024. Thing number 2 was the change of the FASB accounting rules. So it wouldn't look bad on your balance sheet if you were holding Bitcoin. That, again, check that box out. That happened. And then the last thing, which is currently happening, the year of a bear market, which makes me incredibly excited for the next cycle to start beginning, is banks custodying Bitcoin. Now, this move by Morgan Stanley is fascinating because unlike all the ETF players, right, 11 out of the 12 ETFs, except for Fidelity, all custody their Bitcoin with Coinbase. Morgan Stanley, because this was the most successful ETF launch for Morgan Stanley, and it was a Bitcoin ETF, they came to the realization, they said, wait a second, why don't we just custody our own Bitcoin? Why don't we just custody our the Bitcoin for our clients? That makes absolutely no sense. Now, let's take a look at some of the source material. So here is Bitcoin Magazine. Morgan Stanley will use Coinbase and BNY to power its new Bitcoin ETF. Morgan Stanley has tapped Coinbase and BNY Mellon to serve key custody and administrative roles for its proposed spot Bitcoin ETF, according to an amended registration statement filed with the SEC. The filing for the Morgan Stanley Bitcoin Trust outlines a structure in which Coinbase Custody Trust Company and BNY will act as Bitcoin custodians responsible for safeguarding the fund's digital assets and facilitating transfers tied to shared creations and redemptions. Now, here's the crazy part. Seems like Morgan Stanley realized, wait a second, we can just do this ourselves. And that is the massive, massive news. Now, it's crazy to me because we had Morgan Stanley fighting Bitcoin, not only Morgan Stanley, the other banks as well, fighting Bitcoin for 15 years. And it seems, again, as we predicted, because we were saying, listen, no one is better than their incentives. And as Wall Street figures out that they can make money off of Bitcoin, what are they going to do? Like, they're capitalists at the end of the day. Jamie Dimon's a capitalist. They're all going to want to get in on the party. And that's exactly what's playing out, right? So again, this is very interesting. It's good because you don't have this giant concentration of custody of Bitcoin just with Coinbase. You have the banks themselves coming out and saying, listen, we want to custody Bitcoin on behalf of our clients. So let's see how this plays out. Now, another piece of interesting news as well, kind of referring to what I was talking about in the intro, is check out this announcement. It came out April 2nd from Coinbase. Coinbase receives conditional OCC approval, building the future of finance. It goes on to say, today marks a significant milestone in Coinbase's long pursuit of regulatory clarity. And speaking of clarity, all of this is happening despite the Clarity Act not being passed yet. So it goes on to say, we have received conditional approval from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency to charter Coinbase's National Trust Company. This is a result of years of investment in compliance, engagement with regulators, and belief that the right path forward for crypto is through the system, not around it. Let me be clear. Let me be direct about what this means and what it doesn't. Coinbase is not becoming a commercial bank. We will not be taking retail deposits. Now, why do they have to say that? Do you remember what is the number one thing stopping the Clarity Act right now? The banks don't want Coinbase to offer interest on their USDC stablecoin on the platform. They feel like that is a threat to the banks. So the banks are basically saying, listen, like, we can't have you offering interest, because if Coinbase starts offering interest, and I think it's like 3.5%, something like that, of which is paid in Bitcoin in return, again, if you're a bank, right? Banks don't pay interest on deposits these days. I mean, they do, but it's laughable. It's like 0.00 something percent. And on top of that, they pay you have to pay a management fee if you hold below a certain balance amount. So I think for most banks, it's like $1,500 or $2,500, and you have to pay $10 a month for a maintenance fee, right? So all of a sudden, if you're a younger person, right, and you're, internet native, you're used to these apps. I have friends that don't even have bank accounts. They just use the Cash App thing, and they use that as their de facto bank to receive money. It has a banking number, it has a thing you can receive deposits. You can use that as your de facto bank. So it's kind of interesting to see how Coinbase is really threading the needle, while simultaneously the banks are realizing, wait a second, there's a massive opportunity to hold Bitcoin on behalf of our clients. So again, this is all something that if you guys have been tuning into Simply Bitcoin for years now, we all predicted this was going to happen, not because we're geniuses, but because of the game theory, because of the incentives of Bitcoin. Everybody wants to get in on the action. And it reminds me of this very famous article that Alex Gladstein wrote many years ago called Bitcoin is the Trojan Horse for Freedom. And in that article, he made the case that, listen, more and more countries, more and more institutions are going to inevitably be attracted to number go up technology. What they don't realize is that number go up technology and freedom go up technology are inextricably linked, right? So it's fascinating to see all of this. And also it really sets the tone for the next coming cycle. So, once this resolves, once we find a bottom, perhaps we've already found a bottom, who knows, right? This cycle of 2027, 2028, 2029 is going to be incredibly exciting because it's not just going to be a couple of, publicly traded companies, that perhaps the market sees as risky going in all on Bitcoin. It's going to be the large established banks in the United States saying, listen, not only are we okay with Bitcoin, we will custody Bitcoin on your behalf. And by the way, this is coming on the heels of the news that we broke last week where Charles Schwab, one of the largest brokerages in the United States that is extremely trusted with the older generation, which happens to hold the lion's share of the wealth, they said, hey, listen, we're launching Bitcoin spot trading. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to put all the pieces together. You have Citibank, you have Morgan Stanley. What do you think all the other banks are going to do? Do you think they're going to be able to stay on the sidelines? Do you remember when Vanguard tried to play that game with BlackRock? When BlackRock launched the Bitcoin ETF, the most successful ETF launch in BlackRock's history? What happened to Vanguard? Vanguard took a stance and said, listen, we're not launching that. That's too risky. We can't do that. What happened? The CEO that said that, he's no longer at Vanguard anymore. And you know what Vanguard's doing? They launched an ETF for Bitcoin. They launched exposure for Bitcoin. So yeah, you could take an ideological stance. You could say, oh no, Bitcoin is this, Bitcoin is that. But at the end of the day, you know what? The free market's going to win, right? And this is exactly what's playing out right now. Here's a comment from Brian Armstrong. Coinbase has received conditional OCC charter approval. He says, to clarify, we're not becoming a bank. It's a trust company. We're bringing the infrastructure of crypto under federal regulatory oversight. And again, this is all happening despite the Clarity Act not passing. And this is specifically what Elizabeth Warren did not want to happen. She didn't want Bitcoin to be integrated into the traditional financial system because she knows that once the incentives are there, it's going to be very, very difficult for these banks to walk a lot of this stuff back because they're actively benefiting from Bitcoin. So this is playing out fantastically. Sailors, 3 things that said needed to happen in order for Bitcoin to hit $5 million per coin. They have happened. The year that they happened is 2026. All of those boxes are checked. I don't think it's a question of if Bitcoin will reach $5 million per coin. I think now it's a question of when will Bitcoin reach $5 million per coin. Bitcoin is here. Wall Street is interested. It's not just retail anymore, but I'll give one last warning before I pass it on to we have a special guest in the studio today. Listen, guys, all of this news is fantastic for number go up. It's great. Like, this is amazing, right? You need this type of capital. You need these types of institutions to be brought in so that Bitcoin reaches these new heights, right? That you can't stop that. You need this type of interest. Like, if you wanted Bitcoin to become the global reserve currency, it was an inevitability that banks were going to get involved, right? It was an inevitability that nation states were going to get involved. And you know what's really interesting to me as well is last week, the whole Strait of Hormuz situation, Iran was like, hey, listen, we want to get paid in Bitcoin if we want any ships to go through the strait, which again, guys, connect all the dots. It doesn't require you to be a rocket scientist to see that Bitcoin is on the launch pad on the rocket about to blast off to the moon. And I just don't know when it's going to happen, but all of this stuff is incredibly exciting. Anyways, before we move on, I do want to welcome our guest today. We got Nacho from Ocean in the house. Nacho, what's up? And by the way, for anyone who doesn't know Nacho, Nacho and I had a bromance, and it was at Mining Disrupt. I mean, we hit it off. You know, it was the first time me and Nacho met each other. And actually, the first fireside chat, I was late too for 5 minutes, so I couldn't make it. But we had another panel upcoming. And again, you know, he was a little bit pissed off because he's like, Nico, you kind of like left me out to dry here, you know, on this first fireside. But me and Nacho, we sat next to each other on this panel and we absolutely hit it off. We're going to be talking about Ocean later on in today's show. You guys need to understand what's happening in the mining world. It's incredibly important. For Bitcoin to succeed, it has to stay decentralized and secure. And Ocean is playing a key role and to ensuring that happens. Anyways, Nacho, welcome to the show, bro. How you doing?
Brother, thank you for having me. But this romance started with a broken heart, so it's the best thing. Two Latinos breaking each other's heart and then making amends, and then we went to the moon.
It was like a novela, bro.
Yeah. It was like 3 p.m., like grandma's watching, like that type of intensity. But
absolutely,
it was really fun.
Is Opti getting a little bit jealous right now? I don't know. Who knows?
I don't mind being the other
guy. Opti is shaking his head, and yes. But anyways, Nacho, I do want to get your input. What do you think about all this news, man? Because again, you have these institutions that were fighting Bitcoin for so many years, and now what we've predicted, inevitably, they're coming in. They're saying, "Wait a second, we could actually benefit from this. We could actually get rich from this." And now there seems to be a fight between the OG crypto companies, you call it like that, and traditional Wall Street. And Wall Street is coming to the realization that says, like, wait a second, we can kind of do this stuff ourselves. We don't really need you guys. How do you predict this is going to play out?
So the fear factor is gone. This is amazing. And ideologically, there's a lot of Bitcoiners are against it and want to fight the system. We need the system. We need these big players to join, like you just stated. And in my humble opinion, this is what we needed in order to get out of this bear that we're right now, like what happened with Iran. The fact that these big banks are actually coming into play and doing it themselves, it's amazing.
Absolutely, man. It's amazing to say the least. And also, I have some more news for you guys as well. You guys remember me bringing on Caitlin Long. So Caitlin Long is the CEO and founder of Custodia Bank. Now, what's really interesting about Custodia Bank is that during the Biden administration, Custodia Bank was denied a federal banking charter, right? It's just, and they couldn't really give her a good reason as to why this was happening. Now, I know a lot of things that Trump has done recently are unpopular, the war, to say the least, but let's put that aside. Guys, elections have consequences. It seems like even though clarity hasn't passed, we are making progress. And it wasn't just Coinbase that got approval. It was Kraken that got approval as well. But remember, it was Caitlin that really got the ball moving here. So let's check out this piece of news. Caitlin Long, U.S. Comptroller, just gave one of the most significant speeches about U.S. bank regulation in recent years, partly because Professor Julie Hill asked probing questions. Quote, he strongly defended the dual banking system, working to end the federal, quote, big footing of states' bank charting decisions, including for both FDIC insurance and Fed master account access. The other thing, compiled Wyoming's digital asset regulatory framework, and Commissioner Bishop by name, complemented Wyoming's digital asset regulatory framework and Commissioner Bishop by name, and said the Fed should learn from experience of, quote, wise folks in Wyoming and New York rather than dissing their state peers. Again, this is massive, massive news. And there's progress. This isn't just talk. There's progress. Like the fact that Coinbase got this charter, the fact that Kraken got this charter, it's massive, massive news. And then she ends it with lots more, including Genius Act, chartering OCC trust companies for digital assets, creating a truly serious appeals process for supervisory decisions, working with FDIC Gov to remove barriers to chartering new banks, several criticisms of the Federal Reserve. Very, very interesting. Anyways, here is also a post from Matt Corva, and he says the SEC guidance is great, not because of what it says, but because of what it means. For decades, our system was built upon centralized intermediaries who for some time provided significant value. In the age of technology, specifically audible smart contracts, the need for reliance on intermediaries who are more or less rent seekers is gone. So connect this with what the video said in the beginning, which the one that we played. It's very obvious where this is going. The guidance under Atkins' leadership suggests staff is recognizing that innovation is necessary to do the best by the staff's constituents, market participants, not by the legacy market infrastructure. Lots more to do, but this is an incredible moment. If decentralized applications meet their promise, you can pencil this down as the day centralized intermediaries were dealt a critical blow by allowing fair competition against them. Parentheses, in before all the centralized intermediaries run the same playbook as the banks against clarity. So again, despite Washington basically taking the Clarity Act hostage and Frankensteining it, this is massive progress for Bitcoin being integrated into the U.S. financial system. And again, this is not happening because these bankers are watching Simply Bitcoin or because they're ideologues. This is happening because of the incentives that Bitcoin provides, right? So this is massive news, big breaking news. And again, incredible progress for number go up. But again, I got to give a warning to you guys. Ultimately, the revolution is individuals taking self-custody of their Bitcoin. So this is fantastic news from a number go up perspective, but from a revolutionary perspective, it doesn't change the foundations. If it's not your keys, it's not your cheese. They might make it incredibly easy for you to custody your Bitcoin with Citibank, for you to custody your Bitcoin with Morgan Stanley, but is it really your Bitcoin if you have to ask somebody else for permission to use it? I would say it's not. I would say it's not your money if you have to ask someone else for permission to use it. But anyways, besides that, massive news, and it seems like there's competition here, and everyone wants your Bitcoin, including Wall Street. So if you're selling your Bitcoin right now through this market downturn, it's probably a Wall Street institution that's buying your bag, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day. Nacho, do you have any thoughts before we move on?
No, dude, I agree 100% with you. But again, I'm going to reiterate it. We need these big players to join in order to Bitcoin to go where it needs to go. So
100%, man. Like, I think it's an inevitability. Why do you think there was so much pushback from the big players joining? Like, why do you think Bitcoiners as a whole have this kind of like hesitancy towards, like Citibank and Morgan Stanley getting involved, and, regulators getting involved as a whole? Like, is it warranted? Are they right? Like, are we really celebrating Bitcoin being co-opted? Because that's kind of like a interpretation of all of this.
Coming from an Argentinian that actually got my money locked up and I couldn't access it. They gave me an allowance on my own money from my bank. It happened in Argentina, and it kept happening over and over and over again. That's why I came into Bitcoin. I needed my freedom back. These players coming on right now, if we do it the right way, of course, are going to be, positive, but we need to be aware of that. I come from that. I had to ask for permission to actually get my money to go buy groceries, which is insane. That's why I don't trust banks.
Absolutely. And I think, it's very difficult for someone who's just living in the United States to like get an understanding of that, right? Like, if you're from Venezuela, we had Hafa in the studio the other day, right? He was talking about the very similar situation in Brazil, your situation in Argentina, right? You have this like natural, like, I just don't trust that because we've been rug pulled so many times, not by just the banks freezing the money with the capital controls, but just the theft via inflation itself.
Yeah, for me, it's PTSD. I come from the future to tell you this happened and it can happen again. So what Bitcoin represents, that freedom that we have, needs to be protected. But again, in order for the asset to be what it needs to be, these players need to come in because they are the ones that run the world. They are the ones that hold the money. They are the ones that hold all the boomers with the big, bank accounts. We need them to play ball.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And let me ask you something else, Nacho, right? Because I did mention this in the beginning. And I think this is a very hard pill to swallow, right? And Opti and I were talking about this on air before we went live. Like, despite all these native crypto companies having this 15-year head start, it doesn't matter. It seems like these banks have so much capital, they have so much influence in Washington, D.C., that despite them being 15 years late, they have so much money, they have so much influence that they could still catch up to, you know, these OG crypto companies.
Yeah, they will catch up 100%. We have to be careful now because, again, we are part of the industry that's generating it. So we need to be careful. We need to have more people like you to spread the word, to teach people what Bitcoin is, how to hold it, to be smart about it. I don't think they're going to be detrimental to the industry. I think they're going to add another layer, and we need to be careful on how that layer it's pulled. But they have immense amount of power, immense amount of impossible amount of money, and they can do whatever they want.
Absolutely. And let's talk about also too where Bitcoin right now is at an interesting crossroads, right? I think to say the least, I think it definitely underperformed to a lot of people's expectations this previous cycle. Like we only reached 125 people. We're expecting Bitcoin to reach 100K last cycle back in 2021, and it only hit 69. So I think right now Bitcoin is at this make or break moment, really. Like, is Bitcoin ready to reach these new highs? Like, is Bitcoin ready to become a $10 trillion asset? Is Bitcoin really ready to become a $20 trillion asset? If Bitcoin reaches the market cap of gold alone, it's already $1.6 million per coin. And I would say that's the minimum. I think that if Bitcoin doesn't reach the market cap of gold, I would consider it a failure, right? So just the minimum is roughly, the market cap of gold is roughly 30 trillion, right? We're sitting currently at 1.5. Do you think Bitcoin is ready, Nacho, to reach these new highs? Is it ready? Is the infrastructure ready? Do you think that the institutions are bought in enough? Do you think that by 2030, we will see these new levels?
I think Bitcoin is ready. I think the fear is gone for these big institutions to start adopting. Nations are adopting it. Government, like, you know, states like Texas. So there's a shift of all these people, you know, our biggest haters that were against us. Now they want to play ball. So are we going to reach those heights by 2030? Probably. If I could guess that, I would be very, very, very wealthy. So I'm not kidding. But that being said, I think Bitcoin's ready. I think the industry is being creative. Everybody's thinking outside of the box. They're starting to get into generation. They're starting to mix it up with HPC. So the industry is ready for that shift. Bitcoin was ready, always ready for this. So what we need to do now is be smart about it and protect it.
Absolutely. And let's focus on that last part where Nacho said we have to be smart about it and protect it. That means, and this is Jeff Booth's quote, right, that for Bitcoin to succeed, it has to remain decentralized and secure, right? So we're going to be focusing on how are we keeping Bitcoin decentralized and secure. That's a very important thing that I think a lot of people miss on, right? They think, okay, Bitcoin's success is guaranteed at this point. It's impossible to be co-opted. It's going to stay decentralized. That is not true. You actively have to participate. You actively have to get the voice out. You actively have to take self-custody. And specifically on today's show, during the culture segment, we're going to be talking about what's going on in the mining world, and it's looking awfully centralized, right? Ocean is working their asses off on fixing this problem. Jack Dorsey funded the company, and one of Ocean's team members, Luke Dash Jr., was specifically called by Jack Dorsey a Bitcoin's guardian angel, right? So if Jack's paying attention to this, and Jack's going all in, right, with Cash App, with the all the things with Block, all the things that the BitKey that they developed, he's really going in on Bitcoin. He really believes that Bitcoin is going to solve a lot of the world's problems. And if he's looking at Ocean and saying, hey, wait a second, this is potentially something that not a lot of people are paying attention to. It's definitely something that you guys should be paying attention to. And we're going to be raising awareness to just that. Anyways, guys, it's going to be an incredible show. You guys are going to want to stay tuned in. We got special announcements towards the end, so you guys are going to enjoy it. We got some videos for you guys. It's going to be a great show. Smash the like button if you guys are enjoying it. This is Monday, but Mondays are good days. Anyways, let's start the show. Here we go. Today's episode is brought to you by Bitcoin Well Infinite. If you're a serious Bitcoin buyer, you've probably hit the same wall. Most platforms make you give up custody just to play by the rules. Bitcoin Well Infinite fixes that. They're North America's only publicly traded non-custodial OTC desk listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, which means transparent operations and zero counterparty risk.
You buy Bitcoin, you take immediate control, period. For trades over $50,000, you get a dedicated executive Bitcoin advisor, competitive spread starting at 1%, and immediate delivery straight to your own wallet. No custody risk, no withdrawal fees, just institutional grade execution with full asset control. If you want to buy Bitcoin the right way, book a free consultation at bitcoinwell.com/OTC or email infinite@bitcoinwell.com.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, StampSeed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? StampSeed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them down on paper. Paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo, and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on StampSeed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store. All right, everybody, we are back. Ladies and gentlemen, you want to write down your seed words the proper way. You actually don't want to write them. You want to stamp them into titanium. Go to stampseed.com today. Stamp your seed phrase into titanium so it could survive the test of time. Paper's bad. Paper sucks. Imagine you're 80 years old and your grandchildren are looking at you and they're like, "Grandpapa, I know you're a Bitcoiner and you're going to give us this Bitcoin." And you look at them and you're like, "I'm sorry, I wrote down my seed words on paper and the paper broke." Like, they're going to look at you and they're going to be like, "Dude, you're a moron." But if you stamped your seed on StampSeed, you'll just be able to hand it to them, right? So think long term. Think as if your Bitcoin was worth 10 times what it's worth today. So store your seed phrase properly with StampSeed. Go to stampseed.com today. Use promo code SIMPLY for 15% off. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $72,400 sats per dollar, 1,381. Block height, 944,917. Realized monetary inflation, 0.83%. Market cap, 1.45 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 4.83%. Percentage issued, 95.31%. Decline from all-time high. If you're buying Bitcoin right now, you're getting it at a 42% discount. So head over to bitcoinwell.com. Create an account. Go to bitcoinwell.com/simply. Just for creating an account, you'll get free sats. And smash that buy button and get yourself some cheap Bitcoin at a 40% discount. That's very, very nice. Anyways, I got some videos for you guys. I know Opti played this video for you guys on Friday, but I do want to play it again because I wasn't here. And again, this goes into what we were talking about in the beginning of the show. Like, ladies and gentlemen, put the dots together. Morgan Stanley, Citibank, Charles Schwab. I got a message. I can't say this. It's going to be public eventually. But one of the big conservative wealth management banks, one of my good friends, he works there. And he sent me a message and he's like, "Nico, we're launching a Bitcoin product." This is the same bank that was actively taking a hostile stance on Bitcoin, right? So again, if you connect all these dots, right, guys, like it's looking really, really, really good. Remember, all of this stuff was happening. All of this stuff is happening when Bitcoin's at a 40% discount. When Bitcoin was at all-time highs, you didn't have Citibank announcing they can custody Bitcoin. You didn't have Morgan Stanley saying they can custody Bitcoin. You didn't have Morgan Stanley saying this stuff.
In terms of where the market is. But I have to tell you, in terms of the pickup we saw yesterday, the first day of trading, our best first day of trading for any of our ETFs since we've started the ETF product line a couple years ago. So I think that speaks to the demand that's still out there for the Bitcoin ETF. Almost 1.7 million shares traded yesterday, and at 12 o'clock today, we are already having another good day today. As you said, it's a nice week in the market, a nice day in the market for some pickup in Bitcoin and the markets to help us out there. But
And there's a nice.
So who you heard was Amy. She's the head of digital assets from Morgan Stanley. And there she says it. She said exactly what I said. The Morgan Stanley Bitcoin ETF was the most successful ETF launch for Morgan Stanley. So connect the dots. The most successful ETF in BlackRock's history. The most successful ETF launch in Morgan Stanley's history. Come on, guys. It's not rocket science. And if you take a look at this, we actually talked about this last week, but again, I'm connecting the dots for you guys. And yes, I see it in the chat. Opti's trolling me a little bit, calling me bullish. Yes, I am feeling bullish right now. I am feeling bullish. Charles Schwab launched BTC trading for its 46 million clients in Q2. And take a look at this. This is part of their official report. Potential cryptocurrency allocation based on return assumptions. So if this is Charles Schwab saying this is not Nico or Opti or Nacho or any of the Simply Bitcoin folks. This is Charles Schwab. They're saying if you believe that Bitcoin is going to have a 25% CAGR moving forward, a moderate portfolio allocation would be 16.9%. If you believe that Bitcoin is going to have a 15% CAGR moving forward, which I think is conservative, they say that you should allocate at least 6.6% of your portfolio to Bitcoin. And that's on the moderate side of things. On the aggressive side of things, Charles Schwab is saying that if you believe Bitcoin is going to have a 25% CAGR moving forward, Charles Schwab says if you're aggressive with your portfolio, you should allocate up to 22% of your portfolio to Bitcoin. So again, just by itself, this news, you're just like, it's just another ETF launch. It's just Morgan Stanley. It's just Citibank. It's just BlackRock. It's just Charles Schwab. You could say big nothing burgers. But if you connect them, boy, are they painting a very, very, very bullish picture. Anyways, Nacho, am I imagining things? Am I hallucinating things, bro? What's your take on all of this?
You're asking two Latinos that are Bitcoiners about a romantic take on what's going to happen in the market? Hell yeah, dude. I'm at 25. So you just saved me a fight with my wife. She wanted to go a little lower and I went aggressive. And after this, I'm going 50, dude.
Hell yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Just 50, bro?
Well, okay. For you, I'll do 25 more.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Anyways, guys, if you guys are enjoying the show, make sure to smash that like button, share the video. And guys, we still have so much left for you guys. We got a very interesting video from Jeff Booth. He went on Danny Knowles' podcast, What Bitcoin Did, and he was talking about the current system. And Jeff has such a great way of describing it. So again, the reason I'm playing this video is it's important to remember, guys, that just because all of this stuff is happening, this is very bullish news from a number go up perspective. But remember, the revolution is Bitcoin in self-custody. If enough of us do it, we win, and there's absolutely nothing they could do about it. But what's really interesting, though, is that very control system, these very institutions that, again, were so against Bitcoin, they couldn't resist Bitcoin's incentives, which has been my key thesis for many, many years now. If you guys have been following me on X, I've been saying, listen, Bitcoin is ultimately going to win because of its incentives. Its incentives are irresistible. They're so irresistible that Iran, You know, they wanted to collect a $2 million toll to allow any ship through the Strait of Hormuz, and they didn't want the Iranian currency. They didn't want US dollars. You know what they wanted? Bitcoin. When Tucker Carlson asked Boris Johnson, which was the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, for an interview, Boris Johnson asked Tucker to pay him $1 million for that interview. He didn't want $1 million in pounds. He didn't want $1 million US dollars. He wanted Bitcoin or gold, right? And then simultaneously, while all of this is happening, right, some of the biggest treasury companies, you know who they're owned by? By the president's family themselves. So it doesn't matter where you are geopolitically speaking. It doesn't matter whether you're American, whether you're Iranian, whether you're from the UK. Everyone is seeing Bitcoin for what it truly is. Everyone is seeing Bitcoin as better money. Some of them are seeing Bitcoin as better money for its censorship-resistant characteristics, but a lot of people are seeing Bitcoin because, again, you know, it's infinity divided by 21 million. It's absolute scarcity. I don't think the market has realized the absolute scarcity characteristic yet. I think the moment the market sniffs that, I think you're going to see a God candle, the likes of which you've never seen before. Samson Mao has already coined the term. He calls it the infamous Omega candle. I don't know why I called it infamous. I guess I call it infamous because when we were talking about this and we did that legendary volcano interview, you know, at the beginning of 2025, we were all expecting 2025 to be this, you know, parabolic year, this euphoric year, and I think it let everyone down. But again, I think it's just we're a little bit too soon. I think that Omega candle is inevitable. I think when you were in the early days of Bitcoin, at least when I got in, right, you know, back in 2016, you know, thinking that Bitcoin could have a price movement of $10,000 in a day was unheard of. You'd be like, no, that's crazy talk. I think we're going to get to a point sooner rather than later that, again, you're going to see these crazy price swings. Now, we have seen these crazy price swings. They've just been to the downside, but I think eventually we'll see them to the upside. So anyways, guys, you guys are going to stay tuned. It's going to be an incredible show. We still have tons to talk about. If you guys are enjoying the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. We're going to be right back in just a bit. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin. Here's something most Bitcoin holders never figure out until it's too late. You're sitting on wealth you can't touch without selling. Ledin fixes that. Bitcoin-backed loans. You keep your stack, you get cash. And they just introduced their lowest rates ever. No complexity, no fine print. The larger the loan, the lower the rate. These new rates apply to all new loans, refinances, and renewals. You'll see all the rates up front before you apply. The new, lower rates come with Ledin's gold standard protection. Your Bitcoin remains custodied and is never lent out for interest. Perfect 8-year track record of keeping clients' assets safe. Auto top-ups, LTV alerts, and partial repayments to keep you in control. Repay whenever you want with zero penalties or monthly payments. Ledin's perfect $10 billion track record through every market cycle in the last 8 years speaks for itself. Don't choose between a great rate and the safety of your Bitcoin. Get both at Ledin. I want to give a shout out to our partner, BitKey. If you already self-custody your Bitcoin, you already know the deal with hardware wallets by now. Complex setups, clumsy interfaces, and a seed phrase that can be lost, stolen, or forgotten. BitKey fixes that. BitKey is a multi-sig hardware wallet built by the team behind Square and Cash App. It packs a cryptographic recovery system and built-in inheritance feature into an intuitive, easy-to-use wallet with no seed phrase to sweat over. It's simple, secure, self-custody without the stress. Time named BitKey one of the best inventions of 2024. Get 20% off at bitkey.world. That's BITKEY.world with the code SIMPLY. All right, everybody, we are back. Guys, not your keys, not your cheese. That's why we recommend the BitKey hardware wallet. Again, you can use the promo code SIMPLY to get 20% off. It's one of the easiest hardware wallets to use on the market. All you got to do is you put your fingerprint, you tap it, and with the BitKey app, boom, you're ready to send your Bitcoin. It has multi-sig built in. It has inheritance built in. Guys, what we've been talking about this entire program today, we've been talking about the revolution being your keys in self-custody. So you definitely want to do that. Anyways, I do want to talk about this specific clip of Jeff Booth talking about the system. I want to give a shout out, of course, to Danny Knowles of What Bitcoin Did. This is a clip from him on the What Bitcoin Did podcast. And again, Jeff Booth has such an elegant way of explaining all of this stuff. So let's check out the clip, and then, of course, we'll talk about it.
So if there are 8 billion people on the planet going through a structural change, and most people were fighting that structural change because of their own beliefs from past biases, then the expectation would be this would be really hard. Because most of the people, and it would be really noisy, because most of the people were feeding back against the system that they said they hated, and using the exact same money that they said they hated to increase the power of the state and the system over them. And what they would find is they would find always somebody else. They would find Candace Owens. They would find Tucker Carlson. They would find and really good people yelling at the system, but with no solution to the system. And so they would find themselves in this hate, right? That they didn't know that they were creating, because they were using the same money that funded it all. And they would find belonging in that hate. They would find, I know more than those other people, those stupid other people. Because it would feel like love. It would feel like belonging. It would feel like I know something that the rest of the people don't do. And that would expand everywhere while using the exact same money that funds the entire thing. And when I look at that, I totally understand it's natural. It's what people do. But I wonder why. I wonder if you can't solve the problem, what are you doing? Right. So what are you doing to actually solve the problem? Because what it's actually saying is in all of those versions of their realities is somebody else will save me instead of I have agency. Every single other version says somebody else is to blame. But by the way, we would easily see in a world that looked like this, we would easily not see our own agency, and we would easily see that we would be led to believe from that same system that it's not you, it's somebody else, and we would want to believe that because it couldn't be us.
So what is Jeff talking about? Well, we've been saying this for years now. We've been saying this. Like, what is the fundamental issue? And I got to give credit to Opti on this a little bit. What is the fundamental issue with the political commentators? The thing is, they're right with their observations. The fundamental problem, and again, we've been saying this for years at this point, is that they don't provide a solution. So their observations and their political commentary are on point. And this is where I got a little bit disillusioned as well with the election of the Trump administration. I got very excited because you had an outsider. You had the first president that was not a politician or a general. You had a businessman getting elected as president. You can clearly tell that the system was fighting against him. There are 2 assassination attempts. You know, the 2020 election, some interesting things happened, right? You can clearly tell that the entire system did not, the legacy media attacks were gnarly. So many things were happening. And then he gathered this team, right, of RFK Jr., of Tulsi Gabbard, right? So it was somewhat bipartisan. You had ex-Democrats coming in, and they said, enough is enough. You had this kind of populist uprising, right? You had Elon coming in with Doge, right? You had hope and change. This was what you were thinking was going to happen. But you know what happened? A year later, once again, the United States is at war in the Middle East, right? A year later, it seems like it's a lot of the same things that we've seen for decades and decades and decades, despite the president, despite the political party. This is where the term, the uniparty, comes from. And this is what Jeff Booth is describing. This is what he's talking about. And this is why at Simply, we actually provide you a good solution. The solution of the political commentators is vote harder, daddy. The solution at Simply Bitcoin is vote, definitely vote. But you know what you do? You vote with your wallet. You vote by taking your money out of that said system. Because again, if you continue to battle it, what you're doing, as Jeff Booth so eloquently put, is you're just feeding it. You're giving it more oxygen. So what do? If you feel disillusioned, disheartened, and I find myself in this camp too, like I was a super Trump fan. Like what he did with the assassination attempt, and he did the fist bump, and he was like fight. I was like, dude, this is so badass. You got Elon going in there. Elon's discovering all this misspending and all of this stuff. And I'm like, dude, this is awesome. Like we finally took our country back. Nope. And why? You have to ask yourself why. Well, the reason is simple. The system has a self-funding mechanism. They can just print money. And if the system could just print money, it really doesn't have to do good by its constituents. What it has to do is ensure that it keeps the ability to continue to print money. And if it keeps the ability to continue to print money, then guess what? All they have to do is continue to play the divide and conquer game, vote for Team Red, vote for Team Blue. You get in there, you're expecting change. Nothing ultimately changes. But the scam continues. That's what happens, right? So if you actually want change, you're not going to get this out of any political commentator. You're not going to get this out of Tucker. You're not going to get this out of Candace. You're not going to get this out of the other ones that I can't name on YouTube. Whichever ones are your favorite ones, right? They're not going to tell you this. The only way to change this said system is by taking what Jeff Booth said, personal agency over your life and choosing where you want to put your energy, your time, and your work. Because if you put it into anything that is not Bitcoin, perhaps some stocks, right? You can say that, you can make that argument. But if you have money and you have it in a quote unquote savings account, it's laughable. Guess what? That money is losing on average at least 5 to 10% in purchasing power on a yearly basis. And by definition, that is theft. And what you're doing is when you're leaving that money in dollars, you are extending the life of that system. Let me ask you guys something. Why do you think they were so fast in approving or passing the Genius Act? Because the Genius Act had to do with stablecoins. What do stablecoins ultimately do? They propagate the use of the US dollar worldwide, right? So all of a sudden, if you can't open a US dollar bank account if you live in country X or country Y or country Z, all of a sudden you have access to stablecoins. And thank God that the biggest stablecoin issuer, they're hardcore Bitcoiners and they're funding Bitcoin projects. And they're advocating for Bitcoin. So that, again, is awesome and fantastic. But at the same time, and I would say that by them being Bitcoiners, they understand this too. Like everyone wants Bitcoin to win. And ultimately, when you're seeing this kind of when you're seeing this type of Bitcoin going in there into Wall Street, integrating into the financial system, we are making progress because all of a sudden when these banks and when these, I love you guys, but when these boomers start to benefit from Bitcoin and number go up technology, they're going to be the most hardcore advocates of this. And any type of law that gets passed that potentially might affect their bags, they're going to absolutely lose it. So we are winning. And also another thing on stablecoins is stablecoins, ultimately what they are is they're a Trojan horse for Bitcoin. Why do I say that? Because it's getting people used to a non-sovereign alternative digital wallet. And all of a sudden, yes, if you're in Venezuela and you're transitioning to using a stablecoin, you're like, wow, this is fantastic. I'm not losing my purchasing power. But eventually they're going to come to the same realization that we come to in the West, which is like, okay, this is definitely better than Bolivar, for sure, 100%. But I'm still losing my purchasing power. Like, what's going on here? So, yeah, very interesting Jeff Booth commentary. He puts it so eloquently, like always. Nacho, I want to get your take on this because you were talking about Argentina earlier. You're talking about your own personal experiences. I mean, what Jeff said was so powerful about, this system and how people are so distracted with, oh, vote blue, vote red. It's going to fix all your problems. We have this savior coming in. I got kind of caught up in that as well with the Trump election, right? But it seems like Jeff has really nailed it down. He's like, look, like the only way that we're actually going to see change is if people opt out entirely. What's your take on that, Nacho?
100%. I come from a country that went through 300% inflation in 6 months. I'm coming from the future, guys, to tell you that gap that they're building, it's on purpose. In Argentina, you can see it. Either you were one thing or another thing, and there were families broken, friendships broken. It tore the society apart. You want that because you want everybody to be afraid. And they keep printing money because we allowed them, because we're focused on fighting each other and thinking differently. Instead of having a conversation, we can sit down, have a conversation. You have your point, I have my point. If it's ideological, okay, let's keep it philosophical. But if it's going to be practical, splitting up is not the way to do it. You need to have control over it. The only way you have control is using what we are talking about. If you have control over the finances, they cannot, finance wars, control the market, change the situation.
Absolutely, 100%. And I think that's what it ultimately comes down to. So, yes, guys, like not only are we Trojan horsing in, not only are we getting inside the line, right? Inside the enemy wire. I don't even call it an enemy, man. I wouldn't call it an enemy because like ultimately, like guys, like no one is better than their incentives. And I think the ultimate problem right now is that you have this misalignment of incentives. And I think people, because of the misalignment of incentives, I think people are blaming, like they're saying, oh, a lot of this is just evil people doing evil things. And I would say, okay, maybe some of that is true, right? Maybe some of that is true. Like the stuff with the islands and pizza and all that stuff, like, yeah, that shit's shady and evil for sure, 100%. But I would say that the biggest thing that's causing a lot of these institutions and a lot of governments to act against the better interest for the majority of the population is the misalignment of incentives. And I think something that Bitcoin beautifully does that nothing else does on planet Earth is that it aligns incentives. So all of a sudden, if you're Sailor and if you're someone who's holding 0.1 Bitcoin, or if you're someone, again, holding maybe $20 worth of Bitcoin, Sailor pumping his own bags and Sailor going out on podcasts and talking the Bitcoin game, again, making sure that strategy goes up, making sure that Bitcoin goes up. You're benefiting from Sailor doing that, right? You are benefiting from Morgan Stanley launching an ETF. You are benefiting from BlackRock launching an ETF. When Max Kaiser went out and said, hey, Larry Fink is the Bitcoin employee of the month, he wasn't joking. This is what I mean by alignment of incentives. And again, you might be saying, Nico, you're effing crazy. What the F are you talking about? We already have a base case. We literally have the country of El Salvador, the first country that made Bitcoin legal tender. And by doing that, they fixed the base layer of society. What happened? Do you think that it's a coincidence that the country the first country that made Bitcoin legal tender, has the most popular president in the Americas. Do you think that's a coincidence? You let me know, right? You could say it's a coincidence. I would say, no, dude. It's just the base layer has been fixed. That's what it comes down to, right? So anyways, alignment of incentives. I think ultimately that's why Bitcoin wins. The other system is a system that is a system of coercion. It coerces you to go along with it. It coerces you to use it. My money's on incentives. My money's not on coercion. And I'll give you examples. What happened with the Berlin Wall? Were people jumping into the east or were people jumping into the west? People were jumping to the west. What happens with Cuba and Miami? Do you see people taking boats from Miami to Cuba, or do you see people taking boats from Cuba to Miami? They're taking boats from Cuba to Miami. When all the taxes started happening in California and New York, and they raised the taxes like crazy and all of that stuff, what had happened? Did you see people going from Texas and Florida to New York and California? No, you saw people going from New York and California to Texas and Texas and Florida. So why? Because of incentives. People are like, listen, I just like, I understand that you want to raise the taxes, but like, I don't know what I'm really getting in return for this. I'm just going to go to a more favorable jurisdiction. Like ultimately, that's what I want to do, right? So again, no one is better than their incentives. I think that's American HODL's quote. And ultimately, I believe that is why Bitcoin is going to win. And we were one of the first shows back in 2020 that predicted a country adopting Bitcoin, a country moving to a Bitcoin standard. We were one of the first shows that told you guys that it was an inevitability that public companies were going to acquire Bitcoin. We were one of the first shows that told you that it was an inevitability that the big banks were going to bend the knee. We told you guys that it was an inevitability that PayPal would eventually launch Bitcoin trading. And why did we know all of that? Because ultimately, these countries, these companies, they want to benefit from number go up technology. What they still don't know, and I think the world is going to come to this realization, is that you can't separate number go up with freedom go up. So Bitcoin ultimately is that Trojan horse. Anyways, guys, we're going to be right back. We're talking about how for Bitcoin to succeed, it needs to stay decentralized and secure. So for Bitcoin to stay decentralized and secure, that means that mining needs to stay decentralized. The mining pools, there's something going on there. And of course, we got Nacho in the studio to talk about all of that today. Guys, we're going to be right back just after the break.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. Fueled by clean energy, HIVE has quadrupled its global Bitcoin mining footprint and channels that same scale into high-performance compute, where their AI cloud is now ranked #1 in the world for network performance. At HIVE, you've got dual engines, Bitcoin and AI humming, roaring, accelerating in unison. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable digital infrastructure. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at HIVEdigitaltech.com.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money, it's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store.
All right, everybody, we are back. I want to make a special announcement. Guys, Simply Bitcoin has a new partner. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We've partnered up with Ocean. Check out their merch behind us. It's beautiful. Look at that camo hat. It's sexy. Anyways, I have their website pulled up here. Take control of your Bitcoin mining and make more money. But that's a simple way of kind of explaining it, Nacho. Let's first kind of identify the problem. What's going on in the Bitcoin mining world today? I'm going to pull this up. So if you take a look right now at the mining pools, Foundry controls about 29% of the hash rate. Ant Pool controls about 18% of the hash rate, and F2 Pool controls about 10% of the hash rate. Just them by themselves, they control over 50%. And I keep iterating how important it is. If Bitcoin is to win, it needs to stay decentralized and secure. From your guys' perspective, why is this a problem, Nacho? Why is it a problem that so much, these just 3 pools have so much hash rate, and what could that potentially mean for Bitcoin, Nacho?
The problem is that miners are not mining, they're hashing. If you're using any of those pools, which by the way, Ant Pool is much bigger. That's Ant Pool, the core, and then you have all the proxies that are around. So Ant Pool is much bigger than that. Picture having a Chinese company running 25% of the network. So if these 3 companies align, they can do whatever they want with Bitcoin. The risk of that, it's immense, and nobody's seeing it because we're all focused on energy, uptime, the performance of the equipment, how we can crack deals, where are we going to mine where the energy is cheaper. Okay, our industry is very complex, but the most important part is where's your Bitcoin coming from? And it's pretty simple.
Absolutely. And what about from like kind of let's take like a regulatory, like game theoretical perspective. How easy would it be for those pools to, let's say, get captured on a regulatory level?
Picture this. If tomorrow the Chinese government decides to buy Foundry and F2 Pool, now they own 51% of the network. They can actually control, regulate, and do whatever they want and start fencing Bitcoin or we're going to go exactly where we're running away from. Like we're going to go back in time to the thing that we're running away from. That's the risk, and nobody's seeing. That's why I'm telling you again, mining. If you're a miner, you're supposed to be mining, not hashing. You need to run your own node. You need to have control of your blocks. If you go onto the mempool today, you can see it. It's Ant Pool, Foundry, Ant Pool.
And let me ask you something else, Nacho. What is Ocean? What is Ocean setting out to fix? And I remember I was there at the launch of Ocean in the Christing, and shout out Bob Burnett for hosting it in his facility. What is Ocean setting out to fix? What is Ocean setting out? What is Ocean doing that the rest of these mining pools are not doing?
So the most important part of everything that we're doing is we're giving the control back to the miner. The miner, again, needs to start being a miner like it was intended back in the day and stop being a hasher. If you're using any of those pools, you are just sending your hash rate into their pool. They have control of it. They calculate their sats. They do everything, behind closed scenes, which again is defeating the purpose of Bitcoin, full transparency, and then giving you back the rewards that they calculated that you earned. So what we do different is all of our clients run their own node. So they are solo miners under the umbrella of Ocean. Since we're not taking custody of the Bitcoin, we're just regulating that everybody that's part of the pool gets paid exactly for the amount of work they put in. And this is fully transparent. You can go on our dashboard and look at it. We don't know who our clients are, which is, again, the purpose of Bitcoin. We want to be private. We want to have total control of what we're doing. So once you build your own node, you can brand the block for your own company. If you go online, have you ever seen, and I don't want to name names, but have you ever seen like 50% of the biggest miners in the world? You have never seen a block coming from them. Why? Because they're mining with these FPPS pools, and they are the ones hitting the block, and they are the ones splitting the reward. So not only on the ethos level and the need that the network needs to be decentralized in order to be impossible to control, now we have a very big risk of that. We are the only ones that are, or one of the few that are offering this opportunity of actually having control. So let's paint a picture, which we're not looking to be that, but if tomorrow Ocean becomes 100% of the network is safe. Because every miner, it doesn't matter if you're 100 petahash or 100 exahash, every miner is going to be solo mining. Every miner is going to run their own node. Every miner is going to have control of their asset. Every miner is going to know exactly how many sats were in and how much reward came out. So again, it's very risky. And with these big players coming in, regulatory, fencing is going to come closer and closer and closer, because now we were becoming a target. And if you, with your optimism today, if we get to the level that we know we're going to get, the interest is going to be massive. They don't like having something that's out of control or out of their control to grow so big that now people we're going to be autonomous. We're going to be everything we were set up to be when we started out. How you jumped in 16, how I jumped in 18. Like, we all have that, breaking point on, hey, I have enough. I want to have control over my assets. This is the only way to do it.
Absolutely. And by the way, we were getting some questions in the chat. Nacho's shirt, for anyone who's that stands for Thank God for Bitcoin. They're homies. They do a great job. They do these side events. They've been doing them for a while. And that's what it stands for. It's not a baseball team. It's Thank God for Bitcoin, but they make some great merch. I don't know if it's as good as the Simply merch, but it's pretty up there. And the Ocean merch as well is pretty dope as well. But anyhow, I want to continue this conversation, Nacho, because it's really interesting, and I think it's something that a lot of Bitcoiners are just perhaps not aware of completely, like what's happening here. And I want to focus on the part where, not only from an ideological perspective, Ocean fixes a lot of this. It fixes the centralization problem and issue, but you actually make more money on Ocean if you're mining on Ocean. Is that correct?
Is exactly like that. And I'll explain why. If it's an FPPS payment, you get daily payouts, you get the stable payment and everything. With us, you don't have that. But let me ask you one question, Nico. If there's no blocks, there's no Bitcoin, where's your money coming from? If you know any place in the world where you can actually get free money, please let me know, and we're going to make this show the biggest in the world. But people don't get it, because again, everybody's focused on the basic stuff, on, not basic, the very complex stuff that we have to run through as miners: energy, uptime, the overhead, dealing with regulatory, not only on Bitcoin, but also on issues on energy and land and everything. So what we fix is, of course, you have to deal with the variables of Bitcoin as it was intended in the first place, but you can see at 2025, our 2025, against the better performing FPPS pool in the market, we brought in 3.6% more. That means almost 7 Bitcoin per exahash. That's a lot of Bitcoin.
It's a lot of Bitcoin, and it starts to add up, especially if you're one of the bigger miners, right? Like 3% might not sound like a lot. It ends up a lot. And one of the things that I like too, Nacho, what you were saying, is the obfuscation behind a lot of these other pools and the transparency that you get with Ocean. So not only is there transparency, not only do you get greater decentralization, but you actually get paid more. So it's not just an ideological thing. Oh, you should switch to Ocean, for ideological reasons because you want to protect Bitcoin. But if you're a capitalist, if you're just thinking about the ROI, you can make more money. And I do want to pull this up because, again, you guys have achieved something fantastic. You guys are on mempool space right now. You guys are you guys represent about 1.63% of the global Bitcoin hash rate, which represents about 15.79 exahashes. So it's not small. And BTWs, big announcement here. Blocks 944643 and 944644 were built by two different miners on the same pool, back-to-back datum blocks, back-to-back sovereign mining, while the pool builds the block and the miners hash on it, meaning the blocks mined by a large share of the hash rate is controlled by a few individuals at the largest mining pools. This makes a 51% more likely and the Bitcoin network less secure. And this is what I keep telling you guys, and I want to keep emphasizing this so you guys don't forget. Bitcoin wins. This is not my quote. This is Jeff Booth. Bitcoin wins if it stays decentralized and secure, right? So if you are, and I know a lot of you guys are, if you guys are watching this show and you guys are a miner, you guys should be using Ocean, right? Not only are you going to be mining more Bitcoin, But again, you're actively helping decentralize the network. It's so important. So again, it goes on to describe with Ocean, this isn't the case. Miners using Datum can build their own blocks, decentralizing block template construction while sharing in the benefits of pooled mining. Eliminate the middleman, decentralize mining, and earn more Bitcoin. It's a win-win situation. Now, again, what's the trade-off, Nacho? Because there is a trade-off for now until the Ocean mining pool gets bigger and bigger and bigger. What is that trade-off?
So the trade-off is you're bound to volatility. Again, you're mining like it was intended. So let's paint a picture. Last 2 days, we hit 8 blocks, which is completely random. If you're mining with any other pool, you will get paid the rewards you hit, basically the same. So the bigger we get, the less volatility we're going to have because the variance are going to be reduced. But with us, on average, in time, you're making more, like we stated, because of that fact. And again, there's no financial hidden cost. There's no calculating your work according to math that we invented. This is completely transparent. You put in X amount of sats, get X amount of Bitcoin, period. And we are only there overseeing, by the way, at a much lower fee than most of the market, overseeing, so everybody gets paid the same. But if you look at it from a ideological thing, you are a solo miner under the umbrella of a pool that will allow you to actually get the rewards you deserve and doing it perfectly well with your own node, with your own infrastructure and your own brand in the mempool forever.
And that's how mining was supposed to be, right? It was supposed to be that way. And again, this happened, like these pools happened, like it's in the name pool, right? So let's do, again, for people that perhaps don't understand why people. So again, when you look at these mining pools and you we're like, whoa, Nico, like Foundry has like their 28% of the hash rate. That's not all of their hash rate, right? These are large miners that are pointing their hash rate to these pools so that they get a consistent reward. That's why it's called pool. That's why it's called a mining pool. The problem with that is, though, as Nacho said, that some of these mining pools, there's trade-offs, right? So some of it is obfuscation. Some of it is the fact that you're not getting all of the rewards that you were meant to. With Ocean, it fixes that because, again, it makes it all transparent. But because it's being done as it's supposed to be done, again, just like regular mining, you get the reward when the block gets found by Ocean, right? So currently right now, if there's 100 blocks, right now you have a roughly 1 to 2. Again, this is completely random, right? Because the Ocean represents about 1 to 2% of the global hash rate. If there's 100 blocks, you get roughly 2 of those blocks, right? So over time, your rewards, will level out. That's right, Nacho, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So over time, your rewards will level out. But there is volatility in that sense because the hash rate, the ocean mining pool is roughly 2%. But again, if you're a big miner, that really doesn't matter to you, right? Because again, how many blocks are there in a day?
Today, you kill me.
450 a day, right?
Opti saved us.
So again, just do the math, right? 1% of 450 blocks, right? Opti, how did you know that, dude?
I remember something.
Opti remembers
the one thing.
Opti calls himself a retard, but like he's secretly Opti calls himself regarded, but like secretly, like this guy's a genius and he's a philosopher and he's just being very humble. But anyhow,
one thing, Nico, it's not an Ocean block; it's the miners block. We're just helping them with the vehicle and the support to split the rewards. It's not our block; it's their block.
So let's talk about that more, right? So when you say that, right, which is very significant, I understand it. What do you mean by that? So like, if you're mining with another pool, it's not their block.
You're hashing. You're not mining. You're sending the hash rate. You're sending the hash rate to the pool, and then they give you the rewards according to their calculation of your work you put in. With Ocean, it's not. You are completely independent. This is completely transparent. You have your own node. So everything is done out there. You can come in, like we're the perfect picture because again, if you want to mine with us, since we don't know our clients, we don't hold the custody of the Bitcoin, there's no KYC because we don't need to do it. We are so compliant though, which is a beautiful conundrum, but we are so compliant. We can have a big boomer CFO from, brand new companies coming in the market that doesn't understand anything, that wants, of course, daily payouts because he comes from fiat market. Like, I want everything by the book. I want to be paid every day. No, Bitcoin wasn't planned like that. You put in the work, and if you're very, very lucky, we, on the last 6 days, have had 240% luck. So if you look at the window of the last 6 days, and I give it to one of these boomers, sorry, we're hitting on you, but we love you. They're going to be flabbergasted, insane. Of course, if they look at another window, we can be 40%. So that volatility comes and goes, but eventually it's dialed down. And we are working with the team on expanding the company and we've been growing at a very, very high pace. And the growth this year is going to reach numbers that nobody even plan on, because all that, what happened with the fiat market, like all these big banks, were calling us names and whatever, and now everybody's in. That fear of missing out is happening to us because everybody's seeing those 3.6% more, those 7 Bitcoin per exahash they left on the table last year. And this is backwards data. This is math. I'm not selling it. I'm good at selling, but I'm not selling anything. This is math, pure math. If you do the math and you left, I don't know, let's do simple math, a 10 exahash miner, it's so much Bitcoin. And just doing the same thing.
Absolutely. So again, not only are you decentralizing the Bitcoin protocol in the process, you're earning more Bitcoin. And again, the more hash rate the Ocean mining pool acquires, and as it grows, that volatility decreases, right? So it's a win-win situation. Now, I do want to point out, Opti put it on screen. Opti was wrong. He thought they asked how many Bitcoin a day, but the question was blocks. So there's 144 blocks a day, Opti.
Don't use the R word. Don't use the R word.
No, but I said it in a way that he calls himself that. I don't know why, but
if you want to talk that, bring mechanic, bring Luke, bring the smart guys, not the business guy, dude. Like, come on, you can do better.
Oh man! So guys, start mining on Ocean today, and all you got to do is you got to go to Ocean.xyz.com. It has all the information there, and I also, if you guys are already native miners, I already put it in the chat where to point your miners to, and you could start today, guys. It's, as Nacho said, in a non-compliant, in a compliant way. It doesn't require KYC. This is how Bitcoin mining is supposed to work. So yeah, go to Ocean.xyz. We're going to be having Nacho on the show more often. And we're going to be doing some things with Nacho, which I do want to show off. I have it right here. Let me share the screen. Here we go. Boom, bam, bing. There it is. Nacho, Hafa Zaguri from Electron, and myself, we're going to be racing supercars in Las Vegas. Looking forward to that. We're going to be dropping the video for you guys so you could see it. You could see my face, like, in fear while these cars are going super crazy. And we're going to be racing. We're going to see, who's the fastest, which is going to be interesting. So very excited to release that. And we're going to be doing a lot more things with Ocean as well. So guys, go to Ocean.xyz to find out more information. Again, decentralizing the Bitcoin protocol in the process. You're making more money. It's a win-win overall. It's just a win-win, guys. Ocean.xyz. All right, everybody. I also want to give a shout out to our sponsor as well. Guys, you don't want to miss the biggest Bitcoin celebration of the year. Nacho and I are going to be there. Ocean team's going to be there. Someone in the chat. Hafa will smoke you just because I can't say that. Opti, what is going on there? I think Hafa's just gonna smoke me because he's just a better driver, bro. So scan the QR code on your screen right now, and you'll get 10% off. by using promo code SIMPLY to the Bitcoin conference. The speaker list includes Afrojack, Michael Saylor, Paul Atkins. We were talking about Paul Atkins for a while, so I'm really excited to hear that talk. Because the SEC chairman is based, and apparently he likes Bitcoin. You have Mike Selig. He's the chairman of the CFTC. And then, of course, you have David Bailey, Eric Trump, Jack Mallers, Paulo Arduino, Senator Cynthia Lummis, Adam Back, David Marcus, Fred Thiel, Matt Schultz, Amy Oldenburg. We just played a video of her. She's the head of digital asset strategy at Morgan Stanley. We got the banks showing up at a Bitcoin conference. Of course, we got Tim Draper, and we have the CEO of MetaPlanet, Simon Gervich. I hope I said that correctly. Get your tickets now to the Bitcoin conference and use promo code SIMPLY. Again, promo code SIMPLY to get 10% off your tickets. Anyways, guys, if you guys enjoyed today's show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Consider subscribing to Simply Bitcoin. We love you all, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.